Hey everyone, well welcome back to a slightly later than usual part of video games and consoles from the loft. And without any further delay, let's see what's in store for today. Well, today we're going to take a look at the Uforce controller for the NES. Is it any good? Does it even work? Well, we're about to find out. And yes, here it is, the Uforce controller for the NES. So let's check this beast of a thing out. Well, the Uforce controller was released in 1989 for the NES and designed to give us an interaction with video games like none other controller had ever done before. And behind the making of this controller is Brundibund, or also known as Brundibund Software, until they ceased trading in 2003. They were founded in 1980 and were very well known in the USA for publishing video games on every major computer system during the 80s, which made them a fairly dominant company. Brundibund also explored other areas of software, which included making a desktop publishing kit and a family tree maker. And of course they helped develop several games for the NES, and they designed the Uforce controller, which is actually being dubbed one of the worst controllers ever made. And honestly, yeah, it's a pretty bad controller. It's a great idea and very innovative, but to use the controller itself is very hard and very frustrating. Well, I think it's about time we had a look at this beast. Well, the Uforce's box is actually fairly detailed with some decent information written all over it in terms of what's inside the box and what kind of games you can use with it, and also tells you that you can't use it with the Zapper series or the PowerPad series. Within the box you get the handlebars and the T-bar, and of course the Uforce itself, which is actually a fairly large item but nice and light and really compact as well, as it can be folded open and shut close. Again, underneath there's just a few trademarks and patent pending marks, nothing too important there. And if we now open it to the upright position, which now looks like a game of battleships, we can now look at the controls, and you have a start and a select button as usual on your normal NES control pad. You have a infrared sensor at the front and at the back which can pause the games. You have turbo buttons for your A and B buttons, and of course you have those game switches which you need to select for each individual game, but of course I don't have the instructions, so you have to sort of fiddle about. The T-bar consists of two rapid fire buttons and two nice comfy grips so you can hold it nice and steady, and of course underneath you get these two paddles which flip over when you press the rapid fire buttons, and obviously the white paddles interact with the actual deck of the Uforce. So when you're using them, like to fire at your enemies or jump, they react with the pad, which is extremely clever. And of course the Uforce unfolds so you can interact with the games with the use of your hands. Talking of games, let's look at some gameplay. Well, I've been playing Super Mario Bros and Paperboy lately with the Uforce, and to say the least, I haven't been getting on very well with it. The main problem is that if you don't own the manual, you can't set the game switches properly to the games that you are playing, although you can do it with a bit of trial and error, which can take a bit of time. The next problem is working out which side does what when you are waving your hands over the two pads. So this can also take a moment to get used to and work out. But even then, when you have worked it out, the pads can be very unresponsive and you can end up concentrating more on the pad than the game itself. All in all, this controller is more of a hindrance than anything else. It's definitely a novelty to be able to play a game this way, but that novelty soon wears off as you learn that this controller is very ineffective, frustrating, and pretty much useless. When it comes to using the hand grips and the T-bar with games, this can be more handy, especially using those rapid fire buttons. But when it comes down to actual physical movement, like when I'm playing Paperboy, it just does not interact enough with the game and all sorts of problems start to occur. There may well be a game out there which suits the Uforce down to a T, but I definitely and certainly have not found it yet. Well, the Uforce is just so hard to use as a controller. To perfect the most simplest and easiest of moves that you can do with just a regular NES controller requires you to practice and really concentrate, and even then it still might not work. I find using the T-bar is slightly easier, especially with these rapid fire buttons, but actually moving your character during the game is near impossible. There's no denying that this is a really creative and innovative idea, but designed to help you play and conquer video games, did not and does not work at all. And in my opinion, just stick to this. Well, if you fancy a challenge to take on the Uforce controller, or just adding it to your video game collection for past video game history, then you're possibly looking at around £10 to £40 or $10 to $40. And once again, this all depends whether it comes with that box or instructions. And I've also noticed that there are a few floating around on eBay at the moment, so I wish you happy hunting and good luck with that. Well, that's just about it for me for today, and I'll be back soon with another video. Take care and have a great week. Ah.